so that you all get access to the content that we're about to review, because it is the core of the process. It is the networking piece. Okay, so why are we creating all of these resumes, these LinkedIn profiles? We're doing all of this stuff so that we can join networking communities, post a networking blurb, and start conducting calls. And the resume, the LinkedIn profile just backs everything up so that a person can literally see, oh yeah, I should reach out to this person. But our whole goal here is to conduct these calls. Yes, we're also doing it so that when we reach out to recruiters or we apply for something, we're just making an overall great impression. I want all of you to think about this though, in terms of just being able to get those networking calls, and all of this backs that up, right? And then you'll track your calls and do your follow-up. Okay, you guys already know a lot about me, so we don't have to do that. One thing I want you to consider as we talk about networking blurbs, which you'll understand soon is how we get momentum to build out our networking funnel. Why put ourselves out there like that? Why take that risk and put this statement into the world of like, hey, I'm looking to talk to anyone who just got a job after doing a coding boot camp? Well, one of the reasons, and this is to help with imposter syndrome, is to remember that everyone at an organization is incentivized to make referrals. If you've worked at a company before, you will notice that people are constantly asking you, or you'll constantly hear from HR or hiring managers that they're looking for referrals for roles. The majority of employees, after they've been at the same company for like 6 months, they don't have anyone else to refer. They've got their their network of their people they're close to, and they exhaust that very quickly. So many of them don't get to participate in the hiring process that way unless they're really intentional and really thinking about it, but they would like to. Sometimes they would especially like to, because sometimes there's actually a monetary incentive. You may have noticed that for some roles, companies will say like, oh yeah, and then you'll get a referral bonus. But whether there's monetary incentive or not, there's always social incentive. If you are in an organization right now and you refer a strong candidate that everyone likes, even if they don't hire them, the leader who met that candidate, they now think of you as a really resourceful person. And you just made a good impression of the company that you work for. So when you put yourself out there, really long story, I could have made it short, you're giving other people the opportunity to participate in their company's hiring process and refer a strong candidate. So I want you to keep that in mind. Okay, so the core of this process, right, is we're supposed to build out this networking funnel. And then we celebrate when we get to 5, then 10, and then 15. How do we do that? Lots of ways to do that, but it starts with a networking blurb. Actually, I need to update this template because there's always a salutation before that. But the 3 components of this, I do. And state in plain language the thing that you like to do. Because. And then some of us start with passion. Vision is really strong. We talked about this a little bit last week in the about statement, but it's that idea of, hey, maybe I know how to design a user interface for accessibility in ways that other people don't, and state that, right? That's going to be powerful. Or maybe there's an example. And then qualifying yourself. Why are you a person that's qualified to do this? And if you're newer in your career, that's great. We can still talk about the impact that you want to make, and pointing that out and painting that picture qualifies you, right? And then because this is a networking blurb, you follow up with an ask. I would love to talk to, and then very specific type of person, about type of opportunity. So this is the outline that you start with, and it'll sound very familiar because it's similar to our outline for our elevator pitch for our about statement, but it's just repurposed to really start a conversation, right? And once you have the outline, you can really make it your own. And like maybe depending on the community that you're posting it in, it's I'd love to do a coffee chat, or I'd love to hop on a 20-minute Zoom call. Like whatever you feel is going to reflect back the personality of the community and make people the most comfortable. Language that I don't want us to use is language that would imply there's a power imbalance. So we're not going to say, would anyone be willing to chat with me? Or we're not even going to say like, it would really mean so much to me because, you know, I'm really stuck on my jobs. We don't need to say that either. We are always assuming that we are really, really valuable in this talent market because all of us are. And that putting ourselves out there and describing that is all that we need to do to start the conversation. And it really is, because people are more inspired when you lead with that. And verbiage just like, are you willing to, gives the human brain a chance to say, no, I'm not willing to, even if they were. But phrasing the question like that can just lead us to answer negatively in our mind versus like, oh my gosh, this person's excited about these things that I'm also excited about. Like, yeah, I should reach out. Okay, it looks like someone dropped something into the chat. Confidence is contagious. Yes, yes, I love that. Exactly. So you're leading with confidence. People are going to hear that. They're going to get more confident, more excited. And let me just show you an example. We have a ton of examples of networking blurbs now from everyone that's been in the program. So I need to add like a lot more here. Michaela's was particularly successful. When Michaela began, though, I want everyone to know that, so she is now on a contract role at a startup called Seshi. When she began the boot camp, she was like, well, you know, I've been in nonprofits, so I don't really have key results that are important to the industries that I want to go into. And then a couple of weeks later, we uncovered some stellar stuff that she did. And it was like, yeah, her work in nonprofits is very transferable, right? So anyhow, would anyone like to read this out loud so we can all feel it?
I'll do it.
Great.
Hi all, my name is Michaela Henley, and I come from a program management background working for nonprofits and educational organizations over the last 10 years. I most recently worked as a senior program manager for a large global philanthropic org, leading the program implementation strategy for the Northeast region. One of my most notable achievements was executing a 17,000 person event at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. I am a passionate problem solver and equity-minded servant leader, actively looking to use my skills at the intersection of technology and learning. I would love to connect with anybody or with anyone for a brief chat about their journey into the technology space, especially if you came from a non-tech background. Also, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Michaela Henley. Happy to support folks' journey as best I can.
Thank you. Excellent reading. Yes. And excellent, excellent statement. So Michaela wound up getting responses from so many people. She wound up on calls with VPs over the next 2 weeks from this, in addition to the 15 claps and that you saw just on that, the point that we took the screenshot. She had a bunch of people reaching out to her on LinkedIn. It just really kicked off her job search. That said, there was some tweaking to get to this point. So you write your networking blurb, you post it in our community, but then get out there and post it and see what happens. The only thing that makes a networking blurb good is when it gets results. And when it doesn't get results, it doesn't mean anything about us personally. It just means we need to go back and rethink the story and try again. And that happens a lot. The whole hiring process is designed to screen people out. Very few things that are designed to screen people in. So this is designed to screen people in, like specifically get them to come to you. That said, it might take a few different drafts. It might take posting it. Well, many times you're actually encouraged throughout this program to post it, like 5 times a week in these various communities. So yeah, we post again, we see what happens, and then we go back to the drawing board and we tweak and we give each other feedback. Any questions right now, just out the gate, first exposure to this idea of a networking blurb?
Just ask where to post. Like for this one for Michaela, where did she post this one? Was it just on her own LinkedIn profile for her network, or question?
Great question. So this is a screenshot from a Slack community, and you are going to join a lot of different networking communities, especially kind of depending on where you're going next in your career. So Ladies Get Paid is highly recommended. I think a lot of people are already there. Yeah. Mind the Product is also good. There's Remote POC, there's Remote Woman. There's actually a tool, and we'll give you the blog post about the tool, but it's called slowfile.com, where you can look up, it's like a database of like 2,000 Slack communities. So you can just kind of look up your expertise area and go and join the communities that make sense for you for where you want to go. There's also a lot of Facebook groups, and Women in Product is one of the most supportive, incredible communities that I have been in, and also just really active and responsive. And people who are in product and product related are there. Remember, product touches all areas of the company. So it's a great one to join. Women Who Tech, Women in Tech, there's Women Who Code, there's so many if you're tech related. That said, we have someone in one of our other cohorts who is actually in events. And oh my gosh, there are so many great communities for events as well when we went and did that search on Facebook. So if you're thinking, well, I'm not exactly trying to get a role at a standard tech company, great, we will find your community. LinkedIn is still a viable community, but it's not the one that we're the most excited about. When you post your blurb on LinkedIn, don't put it on your profile because your profile already has your about statement. You're also going to make a separate post and like actually just do a post that is essentially your networking blurb. And maybe we'll do a few things to make it stand out specifically for LinkedIn because it's such a specific type of community there. But LinkedIn overall is a bit more like a database right now for just who you are connected with. It's great because we can do cold outreach and we have tactics to increase the odds. But right now it's actually getting out there into those communities that are just naturally more active and supportive. Lunch Club is also a good one just to get in the habit of having a conversation with strangers. Is anyone here familiar with Lunch Club already? Okay, so then you should all definitely join Lunch Club. You fill out a profile and you say how many people, fill a little profile about the type of people that you want to connect with. And then you will get a chance to opt in for like remote lunch meetups for like 30 to 45 minutes. And I think you can do up to 3 a week. That said, I don't want anyone here to rely on Lunch Club specifically for their networking funnel because these ones are not as well designed for a job search as just posting your blurb. Like you don't get to post a blurb, they just kind of match you. And that person might be nervous as well. And there might not be a clear goal. And so the majority of the Lunch Club ones that I go on, I've been on like 10 and one of them was incredible and helpful for my own career advancement. The other 9, I don't even know who they were. It just like wasn't important for my career or for their career. So use it because it's good to just get over that like, oh, I'm doing a call with a complete stranger after you've done some calls internally in our community. You guys are already in our community. Alpha is another one. They will also set you up for chats. And I did one with Alpha. I filled out my profile to get matched and I had a similar experience where it wasn't super helpful for either of us. That said, I'm gonna try it again because Alpha is a pretty powerful network. It's like one of the newest networking spaces for women in tech and tech related. And there are some really incredible people on there. So I'd be curious to see how that goes with anyone else. Fairy God Boss, up and coming, still kind of figuring out how that one will fit into what we're doing, but that's another one that you can explore. Your goal is to get 10. And come talk to me if you're not sure how to get into 10 communities or which 10, or if you're like, I've never really been in Slack. I will send you our recording on Slack, and we'll also be doing a session on advanced networking tactics in Slack. So yes, great question. Okay, ooh, we got to get to the fun part. We will be reviewing this part again and again, but in our last couple of minutes today here, get that call scheduled. What do you do? 3 pieces of research before you do a networking call. Oh, actually, by the way, networking calls, you schedule them for 15 minutes, maybe they go to 20 minutes. If it's networking call through cold outreach, it does not need to be longer than that. The really good news is that for 10 minutes, you are listening. If you were there to talk to the whole time, you may as well talk to a wall, right? So don't make the other person a wall. So to set this up for a really powerful conversation, you're going to do 3 points of research. 1, how are you going to engage with them when you begin the call? And then 2, what big question are you going to ask to kick off the conversation? And now I'm looking to get into content marketing because da, 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 da. And then you need something else to say, I'd love to hear more about what your day-to-day looks like. I'd love to learn how you got into content marketing. But you'll do a little bit of research to figure out what is that question that's going to kick off the conversation. Also, sometimes you don't have to ask the question. So I always pause after I set that agenda and we'll talk through the full structure, because sometimes what they say next is going to be more interesting. But people who aren't that forthcoming, you need to have a question in your back pocket so they're not just looking at you and you're looking at them. And then the last one, you need to have a strong call to action at the end of that call. We're going to get to the point in our networking funnel where that call to action will be a referral. But in the beginning, the first 5 calls, maybe it's who else should I be talking to? Do you know teams looking for? Are there projects to get involved with? If there is an opportunity to ask for a referral, though, go for that. That's the most powerful ask. If you don't come to the table with questions, you will start to go into networking calls where people are glazing over and they're like, so how can I help you? What can I do? And when you see that, you know that you are not making powerful asks, and you give this person a better experience when you do, because they decided to give you their time thinking that they could somehow help you. So you are just setting them up to help you, but it's your job to make it as easy as possible for them to help you and paint that picture, right? So you don't wind up on the call. Okay, so like, what are we doing here? What's the point? Oh, no, we don't want that. Okay. So the first thing I will say is you're on a networking call. It's you and the other person. It's up to you what happens there in that chat, right? You're building rapport, you're reflecting back, you're feeding off of their energy. But this is a framework that you have that you can fall back to and use to just have a structure in your mind. So the first minute you're engaging, just on a human level, get excited about them. Make sure they have a genuine reason to be excited. So this is that first minute that, you know, all of us get on the call and like, oh, I'm in San Francisco. Like, oh, where are you? Like, oh, how's the weather over there? And so you're going to overcome that, and you're going to get them, you're going to make them feel better and more excited about this conversation than they were before the conversation happened, right? Like whatever happened before, you're just going to like, Connie, I'm really excited to meet with you today. In fact, I just saw that post you made on LinkedIn, and I've also been thinking a lot about employee wellness. Oh my gosh, wow, thanks for saying that. You know, I put a lot of time into that post. Okay, great. Now you stop. You've engaged. It's your job to make sure you don't talk about that LinkedIn post the whole time. So you set the agenda, just like the kind of, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, and then talk, you know, fintech. Whatever it might be, let them know that there's something that we're here to do that's very, very important. But like, let's first learn a little bit more about you. So when you say this, they're going to give their elevator pitch. Theirs might be like 1 to 2 minutes that we just don't know. Yours is still going to be, and I have to update this, like that 30 to 40 seconds. But after they give theirs, you're going to reflect back something that they said, oh, wow, that's really neat that you also worked with so-and-so, or you've also been working on, like, I've been leading growth and operations in tech for the last 10 years, and now I'm excited to get into people operations. Great. Well, I forgot my keywords, but you know the drill there. So, and now I'm looking to get into blank because, and then you share something about why you're looking to get into this that also maybe qualifies you. You already shared a key result in your bio, so this is the time to get a little bit more personal into your differentiator. And now you pause, and now it's time to ask that follow-up question if they don't immediately like grab the mic. This person might be if they're like me, they're just like, oh my gosh, okay, well, if you're looking to get into content marketing and like, wow, you love running A/B tests, let me tell you, I'm gonna just grab the mic and go. And so you might get someone who's like me, or you might get the more thoughtful, serious person just like listening intently, and then you give your question. Now the ball's in their court. You're listening, obviously you're still having a conversation, asking follow-up questions, reflecting back, making sure they feel heard, making sure that what they have to say, making sure that you're showing that's important, right? That you're truly interested. After about 10 minutes of this, remember all of this has just been like 5 minutes. You engaged, you set an agenda, you each gave your spiels, you kicked off the conversation with the specifics of your goals and a question if needed. And now there's this 10 minutes. What happens in this 10 minutes is that you're building a relationship where this person, you're now this person's opportunity to feel heard and to be the hero and to make a difference in someone's life, right? That said, it doesn't need to go more than 10 minutes. If you guys are really into the conversation, instead of wrapping up at that point, you can also say, wow, you know, what you're saying about building a sales pipeline, it really resonates. I want to check in on time. We'd scheduled 15 minutes. I'm happy to go the full half hour because I really love what you're saying. You can do that. Or you can move towards your wrap up. And the way you do that is by stopping and summarizing back. And just, wow, Cheryl, everything that you just said about why cybersecurity is going to be the most important thing in the next 10 years is blowing my mind. I especially love X, Y, Z. Great. Now she knows that whatever she said it. It was heard. You've summarized. We're moving towards wrap up. And to really wrap it up, that's when we give our call to action. And if I'm going for that strong referral, it sounds like this. It's like, well, Janet, you know, now that I've learned your approach to employee management, I know that this is a place where I want to work. I mean, like, thank you for sharing that. Hey, what's your referral process? Now that you've said blank, I know this is a place where I could be successful. I know this is a place where I would work. This just went to the top of my list for my job search. I really appreciate what you said about X, Y, and Z. Hey, what's your referral process? Sometimes you don't even have to ask and they're just like, let me refer you. They might not be thinking about that. And then when you throw it out, they're gonna light up and say, oh my gosh, send me your resume and I'll send it to Michelle in HR today. Like, yeah, it would be amazing if you came and worked for us because they feel like the hero. They're like, oh my God, somebody really cares. How many people are going about their daily lives at work and someone's coming to them and saying specifically, hey, you add value and what you say is important? Guys, not very many. So that's why these calls are so important and that's why they're so powerful and that's why they keep leading to job opportunities. I have said a lot. We will be talking more about how to follow up after these conversations in future sessions because I realize we're already at time. Any questions? Shares, thoughts, challenges. You're like, well, I've been on all these networking calls and it never goes this cut and dry. Like, yeah, if there's challenges, concerns, that's equally important. Also, you can just absorb it for now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because sometimes it feels a bit pushy when we ask for a referral, but do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, the way you make it not pushy is by reflecting back their value. So the verbiage that I shared, I love what you said about X, Y, and Z. In fact, I know this is a place that I would love to work. What's your referral process? Note that that verbiage doesn't say, can you give me a referral for this role? And note that that verbiage is actually offering them something. It's the opportunity for them to see their own value and how valuable it is to you. And if this person isn't comfortable with making a referral, they will just say, let me look up our referral process and I'll get back to you. They don't, like, you're giving them an out, but you're also giving them a very, very specific ask. So you just don't sound pushy when you ask like that. The other thing too is that you honestly, none of us here should be worried about being pushy. It's the people who ask that wind up opening doors. And if you don't ask, you risk losing out. And if you do ask, well, you didn't lose anything because you already didn't have it. Yeah, which is hard to remember. Like, well, I went into this call and I didn't have a referral. Well, I'm not going to ask because I'm afraid to ask because, and then we start to tell ourselves stories. So, okay, you went in with 0, you come out with 0. I went into this call and I didn't have a referral, and now I might have the opportunity to get a referral if I ask. And we'll talk more about that in future sessions on imposter syndrome. And that goes for like this call, but that goes for everything in career. I have a friend who, he recently became a new EM, so engineering manager. And a month after he got there, he found out that there was, yes, exactly. He found out that there was a woman on the team who was really upset because she felt that she'd been passed over for a promotion. She's like, I can't believe they brought in this like external guy that doesn't know our company. And I've been here for 6 years and I was perfectly qualified for this. And she got really upset. And the hiring manager who had hired my friend was like, I feel awful. I had no idea she had any aspirations for leadership. I didn't even think about it. And I'm like, okay, shame on that hiring manager for not being the proactive person in his department to go and seek people out and ask them. But a lot of these guys just won't because they're not thinking about it. They think that everyone is like them and is self-promotional and self-aggrandizing and just constantly trying to grab. And they don't know that a lot of us don't realize that's part of the process. And like Yulia, I'm going to be sending you all the curriculum for once you land that job, but a lot of it is about how to self-advocate in that first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, so that you build powerful relationships, but also work your way up, right? And self-advocating is just so important because nobody else really cares about your career except for you. It's just like in the medical system in the States, like, my gosh, if you don't keep calling those guys, you're not going to get that appointment. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, put it in a framework that we can all relate to. Ooh, US medical system. Okay, we were always slightly over time. Any other questions or thoughts or shares?
I just had a quick question. I know some people brought this up at the beginning about the screener call. Next week, I have 2 calls with people who are quote unquote hiring managers, but maybe not. And I don't know if they're going to, I'm thinking about going at it strategically in that this is a networking call. But should I kind of blend screener networking script together?
If these are like specifically people at a company and the relationship started because of a specific role, is that the case?
No, neither one of them. There's not a position that's been listed at either company that there's nothing listed that I'm interested in, but I'm interested in both companies.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Treat it like a networking call.
Okay.
Have your career matrix ready and use a lot of opportunities to see the value that you added. Really make sure you find an opportunity. In any screener call, the whole key to a phone screen is telling one really powerful story and then just building a relationship. So yeah, in that sense, make sure you get to share one powerful story that shows why you add value, but otherwise you're still there to listen and to learn. And also for everyone who has phone screens coming up this week, remember that you can take notes during that phone screen and you can refer to notes. You can have your matrix there with all of your stuff and you can refer to it. And you can even, if someone asks a question that is just like totally out of the blue, you can literally say, oh, you know, it's really important for me to think about prioritizing under, you know, constraints of scope and budget. let me take some notes and think that through because it's a really important topic. And then like look back at your notes and like, take a moment to gather yourself like, how the F am I going to answer that question, right? You are not a robot. And I don't know if you guys heard Jeff at Beyond. I happened to pop into his breakout room when he was saying this, that sometimes they try to get to the point where someone is unfamiliar with something just to see how they react. Does the person get scared? Does the person get frustrated? Does the person get defensive? Does the person shut down? Or does the person just transparently say, hey, that's a new area for me, or haven't thought about that, or what I would do to move forward, how I would go about learning this thing, the first question that I would ask, or well, let me ask you some questions because this is a new area. Are you showing that you're still the person who is going to add value and help solve a problem and help move something forward? I just like way over answered your question, but okay. Anything else as we wrap up in this last minute? Awesome. Have a great week, everyone. And if you're not on Slack, make sure you log into our Slack this week because we're going to be posting those networking blurbs. So I will look for all of you there and we'll reach out and make sure that you all have everything you need to be on Slack. Okay.
For the networking blurb in the Lessons Up Slack, is there a particular channel you want us to use for that?
Yeah, there's a networking channel, so post it there.
Thank you.
Mhm.